Good morning. This morning's practice is about balance, and we're going to focus a little bit initially on a chair with some breathing, and then coming up into standing and exploring a variety of different ways of how to improve balance. So join me on your chair. You're going to need a theraband or a buckled strap, a sandbag, and then have a block handy as well. Okay? So to begin with, I'm going to take the theraband and I'm going to tie it around my ribs so that it's on my lower ribs. And I can widen it. Let me show you this. So that I can widen it and this is why I like it a bit better, or any material that's wide. So a scarf would work as well. So that it's wide enough that it covers enough of your lower ribs here. And I like it better than a strap, although a strap's totally fine. It's just that the strap's a lot more narrow. Okay, and so then we have the sandbag, or even a bag of rice, or anything that's just a little bit heavy that you can rest on your legs. For a lot of people, this makes it feel a little more grounding, and you might find that you just naturally lift up without having to like reach through your ribs, which is something we don't really want to cultivate. We're going to start here with a little bit of breathing and use the band initially as feedback. Now, one comment is if you have the sandbag or a bag of rice on your legs and you're not liking it, then please ditch it. Okay? So now from here, just feel yourself breathing. And notice where you feel the breath coming into your body. Right? So you might feel the breath moving your rib cage up here. You might feel the breath moving your belly. You might feel it in your back. You might feel none of that. You might just feel the air coming in through your nose, or if you happen to be a mouth breather in this moment, you might feel it coming in through your mouth. But just notice where it is that you actually feel that breath and how it moves in your body. So where you feel the movement, where you feel the sensation of breathing. I like to say that before breath was breath, it was air sitting in front of our face. And then a vacuum and a pressure change happens, and the air comes in and becomes breath and moves through the system of breathing. But what's really interesting about it is how our tissue has such an impact on how well our body moves to enable that pressure change, to enable that breathing process to occur. So when we become aware and we come in context of our breathing and our body, it will impact our balance. Pretty good alliteration, isn't it? Our breath, our body, our balance. Yeah? All right, so let's just take a few moments here and breathe and just feel. And then take your awareness to the side of your ribs. So wherever it is that you feel you're breathing, without increasing the volume, allow the breath to come to the side of your ribs. Now do your very, very best to not increase the volume, because your ribs will expand if you just kind of go, right? That's not the idea. It's just to take whatever the volume of breath is, wherever it sits, and just consciously direct it to the side of the ribs. So now this band is acting as some feedback to let you know if you're doing it. And then let that go and just let your normal without moving the ribs, kind of breathing without a focus change. Let your normal breath reemerge. And now notice if there's anything different in terms of how your breath feels, whether it's qualitatively where you feel it in your body or quantitatively how big or full or other characteristic now is occurring in your breath. Good. Okay, let's let this strap go. Okay, we're about to get up into standing. So let's not lose the breath and let's feel the feet. So feeling the bottoms of the feet, the 3 points, center of the heel, ball of the foot, base of the pinky toe. Yeah. So the center is down here, ball of the foot is just below the big toe, and base of the pinky toe straight opposite. Okay, so now from here, just easy breathing, bring the weight forward onto your feet and feel those 3 points as you come up. All right, now from here, breaking down this movement of balance, you're on 2 feet, and again, feel those 3 points. And let me come a bit closer. So those 3 points I like to talk about are the center of the heel, the ball of the foot, and the base of the pinky toe. Okay, so that you're here in your standing, feeling those 3 points like you're on a tripod. And let them feel the floor and let the floor feel underneath those 3 points. And then come back to your breathing like we just did on the chair. And imagine you can feel your ribs and your belly and your upper ribs. Without trying too hard, just notice the breath in your body. Because in a practice-like session here, we'll be utilizing that quality of breath to notice if we're starting to grip or brace. Now just move your weight over to one leg. So we're not dumping over like this, we're just shifting the weight over to one leg. Feeling the one leg starting to become stronger, this leg becoming lighter. Now let's move over to the other side, put a little more weight into this leg becomes lighter. So we're just moving really ever so slightly just to feel the strengthening that now comes from adding more load to this leg and then more load to this leg. Okay, good. Now you might want to use a chair. You're taking a little bit more load into this leg and you're going to take your heel up and start to lift that foot off the ground. You need a light touch or a firm touch, depending on where you're at. Right? You might be someone who is post knee or hip surgery and you're regaining your awareness and your connection. You might be older and you're relearning and reconnecting with your balance. So just allow for the support so that you can regain more of that neuromuscular control. Because whether you're past or through surgery, or whether you're older, at any age our tissue can change. It's the incredible plasticity of our system. Okay, good. So now we're just kind of going back and forth. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take a little bit of weight into the standing leg here, and we're just going to rotate the other leg. Okay, good. And then relax. And then others. Okay, good. And then relax. Okay, now what I've got here is I've got a block on the floor. So we're going to take one leg up. We're going to rotate it. We're going to lift it and place it on the block. Okay. Now, if you've got your hand on your chair, feel this leg and notice I've got 3 points touching something. Hand, feet. So now if I take this load off of the chair, something's got to take more of the load here, which is probably the standing leg. So you just very, very gently notice the transition between taking your hand from holding to a little bit lighter to a little bit lighter. You might just be right here with the lightness. Notice what happens with your breathing, and if your breathing starts to become tighter or held, and if you are, then ease back on that. Okay, then take a breath. Good. All right, let's move this over to the other side. Okay, so now from here, bring some weight over to that standing leg, and then rotate that leg bone in the hip socket. And then bring that foot up onto the block. Right? And so then you can play here. Right? A lot of people, when they're playing with balance, is they want to get back to 2 feet, right? They want to get back to something like this, or maybe even into tree, right? And what I really encourage people is to recognize that there's baby steps along the way. So from here, it's like if you're holding onto this chair, so it looks like more like this, right? And then very, very gently, you take more and more and more weight out of this hand. And as this hand becomes lighter, we're moving from 3 points to 2 points, and this leg will likely take more of the load. Good. Good. Okay, lovely. Now, something I want to add to this, depending on where you're at, and there's a variety of different people who follow this feed, so this might be okay for you. It also might not be okay for you. Let's get to play with it. So we're going to bring the block back a little bit so that we're going to rotate that leg bone, and we're going to bring the leg back. So now we've rotated this leg bone a little bit more, but you'll notice that my pelvis didn't go with it. So where I've placed the block on the floor, whether it's slightly more forward or closer towards, if this is 12 o'clock, whether it's closer to 12 o'clock or 3 or 4 o'clock, yeah, then maybe not 4 o'clock, maybe closer to 3 o'clock. Notice if your pelvis wants to go. So you're practicing this ability to rotate in your hip socket while also improving this movement through that standing leg. Now, some of you might say, but if someone can't balance very well, then they're not going to have good mobility in this other leg. But that depends, right? There's all sorts of reasons why people are limited in their balance, right? Like the balance could be limited because, as I mentioned earlier, someone may have been going through hip surgery, but just because they've gone through hip surgery in one hip doesn't mean their other hip doesn't have mobility, right? Like my dad, when he was going through his late 70s, he still had decent mobility. He could have done something this in the later 70s. There's other people in their late 70s who can't, but that's why it all depends on you paying attention to what's going on in your own structure, right? Good, okay, and then come on up. And then just now here in standing, wherever you've placed that, just notice where you're at. The fundamental thing here, though, is that it's not that you're doing exactly what I'm suggesting. It's more about understanding the concept, right? So you can have, as I showed earlier, you can have the block just right here, really close, maybe even closer towards 12. Yeah, or you can have it a little further out. But the key is your pelvis is staying level. Yeah. And you're finding that place. You're finding that place that makes the most sense. And then if you want to take your hand just very, very, very gently, try not to do this. Really, 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 really gently. And feeling what's cool, the nerd in me likes this, is that you get to feel how, as you get lighter in through the hand that's holding the chair, how that load changes in through your leg. And really try not to rush it, because you're actually moving through a neuromuscular connection and you're helping improve that strength in through that leg. This is how people gain greater and greater strength pretty quickly. Yeah? Okay. And then bring that off. Okay, so now you're here and let's come into standing. Now this might be enough for you. And then if it is enough, then I'd like you just to come onto the chair and then just come back into breathing. Yeah, you can have the legs a little wide, feel your feet on the floor. And if you're thinking, I would like a little bit more, then what we can play with is now we can start to bring a weight into the standing leg. Let me step back just a little bit here. And we're coming up. And from here, it's rotating that leg bone in the hip socket, and maybe you slide that foot up a little bit more. But the key is watch if you wanted to hike the hip in order to lift the leg. Okay? So allow, the weight's going to shift, but allow that pelvis to remain level. And so the toes can just rest on the floor. And now the toes, we're going from 2 points coming up into 1 point. So it's not one of these. Yeah, it's very, very, very slowly, because you're going to notice it in your breathing too, right? Okay, and then come back. And let's go to the other side. So now the weight's coming over, pelvis is staying level, rotate that leg bone, and then just rest that heel against that inner leg. And just feel, right? If you need to hold on to the chair, then you can hold on to the chair. Right? I'm relying on you to really pay attention to your breathing, to how your legs feel. Good, and then come on back. Nice. And now in standing, now notice what you feel. It's always a really, really good idea if you're finding that you've got balance issues and you're concerned about your balance, and you live in a place where there's snow and ice that develops. This is a great practice to start early on, which is why we're playing with it now, and I'm filming this in July, because now you've got some runway to play with between now and the end of August, through to September. As it starts to get colder and you begin to get first frost and all that, then that can lead to fear building up, because we know what comes after the first frost, right? Okay, so now we're here. Let's bring the legs wide. Feel those feet on the floor. Center of the heel, ball of the foot, base of the pinky toe. Feel your sitting bones on the floor, on the chair. Okay, and then just come forward a little bit through your hips. Good, and then come back. Come forward. Now just notice, it's really easy to come forward through here, or to try and offset that by reaching forward. Try coming through your hips. So place your hands at the hips and come forward. Yeah. We need to remember that while balance has a huge part to do with our feet, that how the leg bone swings in the pelvis, it is paramount to where we put our feet. How the leg bone moves in the pelvis is paramount to where our feet get placed, even in a position like this. So how this platform of the pelvis interacts with the leg bones is really, really important if we want to improve balance, strength, mobility. So allow for you to focus on like how this actually is. You might be a little bit dumbfounded by what is there, whether it's a lot or a little, but just watch that you're not trying to do this or this. Okay? Okay, lovely. And then bring the legs back in. Okay, now from here, just notice and sit and be with yourself and your breath. And feel what's going on in your feet and your legs. Feel what's going on through your upper body. I encourage you to keep exploring your balance, knowing that sometimes when we feel like we're going to fall down, or that there's a concern about falling down, or you're finding your footing, it's easy to brace up and through the ribs. So do your best to find ways to relaxing through the upper body, and there's lots of videos through this feed that can help you do that. And over the coming weeks, I'll add some more. And just try to move with a little less effort. You may just find that the way that you do move becomes easier and you have more balance simply because you're using a little more ease and a little less strain. Then bring your hands together. And breathe in with ease. And out with gratitude. Have a really, really great day. And we'll see you tomorrow. Take good care.